AI can generate lies faster, more accurately, and more effectively than 1,000 William Randolph Hearst and 1,000 Joseph Goebbels. It can create a false attack and within minutes have it verified and validated by 30,000 bots deployed at the speed of Google.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the Books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Welcome to the Edwin Black Show. I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and author of IBM and the Holocaust and the Farhud, Roots of the Arab-Nazi Alliance in the Holocaust, which describes a bloody and animalistic massacre in Hebron in 1929, and then another one in Baghdad in 1941, both similar to the ones we saw unfold in Israel last month on October 7. Today's episode is sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by members of the Jewish community of Encino, California, who are committed to improving a troubled world, and by the Morning Rattle at morningrattle.com, which has stood up a sudden and unexpected daily minute-to-minute war blog. Today, we welcome guests from across America, including our 4 watch parties in the villages, Newton, Mass., Chicago, and Tampa Bay. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from Adrian in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Holland, France, Italy, Germany, Mexico, Canada, and Israel, aka Israel Chai, as well as other countries. If you have a question limited to today's terrible, unnerving topic, place one short sentence in Zoom's QA feature. Today, like our brothers and sisters in Israel on campuses and the street corners of the world, I and my team are on a war footing. We have stood up this minute-to-minute war blog at themorningrattle.com, and we are working in many other ways, publicly and privately. Announcements. At the Edwin Black Show and our companion YouTube site, we have just released more upsetting illustrated episodes. Our first Swords of Iron war coverage, recorded just after the 10/7 massacres, has been released, followed by part 2 of the coverage, which challenged whether Gazans were innocent civilians or a complicit society. More on that shortly. Check both episodes at the Edwin Black Show or our YouTube channel. You will find them unsettling and unnerving. My tour continues. Most notably, I just returned from Los Angeles. Next month, December, you'll find me at a congressional event with author Ken Abramowitz, launching the 3rd edition of his prescient book, The Multi-Front War, in a Senate event. In January, I lead 3 daily events with the Gross Family Center for the Study of Anti-Semitism and the Holocaust, and then I return again to Tampa. Internationally, in February, it's a return to Mexico City for a powerful community-wide 4-event series sponsored by Yad Vashem, and I'm told that they just launched the advertising campaign within the last hour. In March of next year, I keynote the Canadian Privacy Conference in Montreal, and then much more from Queens, New York to Queensland, Australia. Get details of all my appearances from edwinblack.com/events, and let us meet up in your city. Stand tall till I get there. By now, everyone knows that since last October 7, Israel has been in a full and complete state of war, pursuing the utter eradication of ISIS in Gaza, also known as Hamas. We are all permanently scarred by the videos and physical evidence we have seen, but the world must not forget. A website of brutal documentation videos has been assembled at www.hamas-massacre.net. In the wake of the war, the Jew haters across the world and from coast to coast here reacted to the inhumanity with an unparalleled eruption of Jew hatred and violence from the campus to the corner deli. So I call on 3-minute situation reports from 4 of our leading voices. First, a pivotal report from Rabbi Elie Abadie, now stationed in Dubai. Rabbi, tell us the state of the Abraham Accords and also the state of relations between the communities. Take the screen, Rabbi.
Good afternoon, my dear friend Edwin. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be on your program. And thank you for asking me to give a report here from the United Arab Emirates. As you know, and as many of your listeners know, the UAE was the only Arab country that immediately condemned Hamas acts and continues to condemn that. And is also one of the very few countries in the world that there has not been any protests pro-Palestinian or pro anything. And so that is really the policy, the views, and the attitude of the United Arab Emirates. That has been their official view. And if you want more of their unofficial view and hear what they really think, then you ought to see to the Instagram account of Loai Al-Sharif. He is the unofficial voice of the United Arab Emirates when it comes to that. As you know also that the UAE has said again and again during this conflict that the Abraham Accords are here to stay, that will continue, and nothing will go back to what it was before the Abraham Accord. Like in any country, sometimes each country disagree with another country, their policies, but that's not a reason to stop diplomatic relations, business relations, commercials, technology, medicine, science, strategy, and everything necessary. There are the bonds between the UAE and Israel are bonds that go beyond the just security issues and beyond just commercial issues. The bilateral trade is almost now $2 billion annually. And so their relationships are stable and will continue that way. Also, just last week, a few days ago, countries of the Arab Leagues met all together, and the proposals by many Arab countries were to, number one, boycott Israel. Number two, have an oil embargo. Number three, not allow any weapons from any U.S. bases in Arab countries to be transferred to Israel. Condemn Israel in every single fora and cancel diplomatic relations of all countries that have the Abrahamic Accord. Those proposals were completely shot down by all the Arab countries that are in the Abrahamic Accord, plus Egypt, plus Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. So you talk about Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the UAE, Egypt, Jordan, Sudan, and Morocco. They all were against those proposals, and those proposals did not pass. So the commitment of the Abrahamic Accord is as solid as it could be. It will continue that way, because the mutual interest between Israel and many of those Abrahamic Accord countries go beyond just the security. There's just so much interest between them and they also understand that Israel is dealing with the terrorist groups, with a terrorist group that is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an organization that all of those countries repudiate and abhor, and they themselves are fighting them. Now, on the street of Dubai, still very quiet, very safe. We have heard just very few school bullying of children, but nothing at the official level, nothing in street, nothing in businesses. However, the government did recommend that the Jewish people should, in a sense, not express too much Jewish appearances, only because they don't know, there could be one crazy guy, two crazy people that might not do something, but might insult them and create a broil. So they recommended that. Also, they recommended that public places where there were prayers, like in hotels and places like this, to also suggested to maintain a low profile. And that's what it is. Kosher restaurants are still open. I just returned from one today. Yesterday I went to another one. Last week I went to another one. So kosher restaurants are open. People are going there. The only thing that we're missing here is many of the Jewish tourists, either Israeli tourists, American tourists, or European tourists. That industry has diminished significantly, at least the Jewish tourism into Dubai.
All right, Rabbi, let me ask you, the big player that's behind the curtain is Saudi Arabia. When this is done, and I don't know how long this is going to last, this war, and of course, even when the war on the ground is done, there's going to be after effects. Do you think that the momentum with Saudi Arabia will resume? What's your thought?
Absolutely. I am not just convinced, but from what I hear from the surrounding neighborhood here, those negotiations will resume. And I venture to say that they are still continuing nowadays, those negotiations, albeit on a lower level than it would be, but those negotiations have not been broken. They will resume full force after the war.
Didn't Saudi Arabia take down a Houthi missile that had crossed over its airspace targeting Israel? Do you know anything about that?
Absolutely. Saudi Arabia saw that missile can be an attack to Saudi Arabia itself. That's how they considered it, and that's how they justified that they took it down. Of course, it was known that this missile was going to Israel, but Saudi Arabia interceded and prevented that from happening. They will continue to do so if they find another one's coming also.
All right, that's good news. Rabbi, thank you very much, and I hope to see you, God willing, in the spring. And now we turn to one of America's preeminent Jewish editors, David Suissa, who heads up the Los Angeles Jewish Journal. Earlier this week, I attended the newspaper's fabulous gala at the elegant Beverly Hills Hotel, where leading LA individuals came together to rally for the community and the newspaper, which continues to thrive as a traditional print paper, even in this electronic age. David, give us the temperature of the LA Jewish community, and how did the 10/7 massacres confront you as a Jewish journalist?
Well, thank you, Edwin. First thing is I want to congratulate you. You have 2 Sephardim on your panel today. 2 Mizrahi. That might be a record. Usually it's 1, so I'm delighted to be part of Rabbi.
Well, not when I do a Farhood episode. Then I'm in the minority as a Polak.
We love it. Sephardim, we're taking over. Well, look, Edwin, one of the things in journalism that's fundamental is to assess the scope of a story. It's kind of the bigger than life issue in journalism. So when 911 came, how big is this? We're always asking, when COVID took over humanity, right? How big is this story? So I can tell you without any doubt whatsoever that October 7th is the biggest Jewish story of our lifetime by far. And when I say by far, I mean nothing comes close to October 7th. So it's really important that we start with that premise. People get used to habits. They have habits. For 50 years, we have horrible terrorist attacks. Then there's a bus, and then there's 7 that die. Then there's an attack with a shooting, and there's 3 that die, 6 that die, 4 that die. In Israel, we have 1 victim, and the whole country sits shiva. So try to understand a human brain that is used to these numbers, these small numbers for 50 years. And then all of a sudden, one day, that number goes from 405 to 1,400. Not just died, but massacred. And the reason I'm making a point on this, which everybody already knows, is to help you understand what has happened to the American Jewish community. that I absolutely have never seen before. I've gone around to Jews from the left, from the far right, everything in the middle. Sephardim, Persian, Mizrahi, everything. I've met Jews from all around, and Edwin, they were there the night of the gala. And here are the two dots that everyone must understand, is you have the horror of October 7th. Now, had the world given us a massive show of empathy and sympathy and understanding, it would have been one thing. But they gave us the exact opposite. So the Jews of America have connected these two dots. We have the worst tragedy, calamity of modern history since the Holocaust, and the Jew hatred in America has gone way up. So when you connect those two dots, this has made us, and I use the word, it's made us dizzy. It's made us numb, dizzy, and enraged. So when you see, these billionaires that are writing to the heads of universities, and they usually give $100 million for this building or that building, the Jews in America have taken the gloves off. I was with a group the other day, leftist groups who are usually pro-Palestinian, Jewish liberals, who are centrist. They might go to the J Street convention. They're like as liberal as it gets. There are plenty American Jews that are liberal. Half of our audience of the Jewish Journal, vote for Obama. The other half voted for Trump. We've seen them all. But here they were. I'm sitting with leftist Jews. And you know what's on their mind? The images of October 7th. And one of them came to me after I spoke, and he said to me, David, every time I feel like going back to my left side, when they say the left side, New Israel Fund and that kind of stuff, whenever I just think of the images. I cannot overstate the importance of these images. We have now, these are parents, and you know what they think about? They think, what would it be like for me if I was one of the mothers or fathers of one of the hostages? What would it be like for me if I was in one of the shivas, the 1,400 shivas that have happened in Israel the past 4 months? If I was part of that family that was burned alive? These images will go on forever. They will never, ever leave us, ever. So I'm saying all this to make you, I'm trying to impress on all of you listeners out into the real world that the Jewish community in America has changed drastically. I have never seen such a spirit of unity, of solidarity. There's a sense that we're all in war together. It's like similar to what happened in Israel. I covered at the Jewish Journal the first 10 months of 2023. We had 100 stories on how this is the most vicious civil strife in Israel's history, that this was risking a civil war, that we had 700,000 Israelis demonstrating every Saturday night. Unbelievable, right? And then overnight, all that has gone away. A similar spirit has entered the bloodstream of American Jewry. And I have to tell you, as far, what do we call them, Edwin? Silver linings? That is one hell of a silver lining, because we're all in this together now. And when I really see it, when I see that usually these Jews that I'm talking about from the left, they would now be protesting against the bombing of Israel in Gaza. They would be right up there calling for a ceasefire. They would be saying it's outrageous that all these Palestinians are dying. You know what they're telling me now? They're telling me that these Palestinians, as hard as they feel for them, as painful as it is, they're saying they're human shields. The blood of those Palestinians on Hamas's hands. As much as Israel wants to eradicate Hamas, the Jews of America totally understand that. I'm going to add one last point, because Rabbi Abadie said something really interesting about Saudi Arabia. In the Middle East, there's such a thing as the strong horse theory, right? One of the reasons for the Abraham Accords is because they made a deal with a strong horse, and that is Israel. For 75 years, Israel has developed the mystique of the most powerful army in the Middle East. That is a huge benefit to Arab nations that are going to want to make peace with Israel. On October 7th, that mystique was punctured. They're not going to want to make peace with a weak Israel. So one of the real crucial objectives of the Hamas, of the war right now in Gaza, this is not about revenge. This is about survival, and this is about building on the Abraham Accords and regaining the mystique of Israel as a country that you don't mess with.
Oh, well, I'm very sorry to agree with everything you said. It's a nightmare. Can hardly comprehend the truth of every word you said. I'll ask you, first I'll make a comment about the strong horse. This is a well-known aspect of Arab ideology, and that is that you make peace with the strong horse, and the strong horse stumbled. But I believe it was replaced with the Lion of Judah. So we're out roaring now. So I'll ask you just this one question. Are we going to recover, or is this going to be a knife between our shoulder blades for the rest of our life? And is this war against the Jews from coast to coast going to recede, or is it going to get worse?
It's a fantastic question. I'll answer it in two ways. This is what I'm hearing from Israel. The trauma of October 7th was so deep that the way they want to honor so that the victims did not die in vain is they want to go as low as we reached on October 7th. They want to reach as high or even higher. For example, those kibbutzim and towns on the border that were massacred, they're going to be rebuilt even better than before. The security will be even better than before. They don't want to come back to October 6th. They want to come back to a much, much better Israel, a stronger Israel, a happier Israel. This is the mood in Israel right now. They don't want to come back to the way it was. They want to come back to something better. They're going to honor the victims, but coming back to something better. In America, do we have that same drive? I don't know, because I do feel that the hostility towards Jews right now is kind of here to stay. I don't see it going away that easily. One of the things I'd like to impress on the listeners today is that it's not just about numbers. You know, you hear like the ADL, 400% increase in anti-Semitic attacks. It's a lot more than that. There is a body language that is vicious, ghoulish, threatening, and really, really ugly. There was a scene a few days ago on UCLA campus that I've never seen before. These are scenes where there's almost a kind of hysteria. You know, one of the theories I have is this big, strong horse finally looked weak and vulnerable. Well, they smell blood. It's like now maybe we can finish them off. There's something so ugly about the Jew hatred now that we have never seen before. And I'm talking about all over the country, especially on college campuses. And whether that's going to go away, Edwin, I don't see it going away right now, because it's almost kind of locked in. There was a fabulous article that I read recently on the pleasure of anti-Semitism, that this is not just something about ideology. This gives you true pleasure. And I'm seeing this pleasure from these hysterical people that stormed yesterday. They've been storming everywhere. The White House, the Democratic Party, everything. Right now, they're calling it ceasefire. These people have zero interest in helping Palestinians. Their only interest is they feel Israel is weak right now. Let's finish them off. And I think, ironically, because I see this as continuing, Edwin, I see the Jewish unity continuing as well.
All right, listen, I need you on for about 4 hours, and I don't have 4 hours. So I'm going to have you back. And right now, we're going to go to London, where we find Likud UK president and an exceptional Brit and outstanding human being, Zalmi Unsdorfer. Take 3 minutes and tell us where the British government and political world is in supporting Israel's war, and tell us how bad and unsafe it has gotten and the surge of anti-Semitic violence has become in London. Go, Zalmi.
Okay. Always nice to see Rabbi Abadie. Whenever I see him speaking from the UAE, it gives me an enormous hope. And I have been following the Twitter feeds of some UAE people. And it's kind of like amazing that the only place that there's no Jew baiting going on happens to be the United Arab Emirates. So yeah, I hope that this does extend more. Okay, we've had, talking from the political point of view, we've had some ructions in the last few days in Parliament, where the Home Secretary was fired by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and was replaced by James Cleverly. James Cleverly was the Foreign Minister of Britain, very, very supportive of Israel, good friend of the Jews, and he's been replaced by former Prime Minister David Cameron, who has too many connections with China and other, I would imagine, Middle Eastern sources of funding, as ex-prime ministers do. You have to look at Tony Blair and all the money he makes out of Middle Eastern consultancies and so forth. So it's been busy. But during the exchanges, Prime Minister's question time yesterday, Sunak was pressed by members of Parliament, asking him to stand by the calls for the ceasefire. And to give him credit, Sunak resisted all that. And he talked about humanitarian pauses, but he would not have anything to do with the ceasefire. And then Keir Starmer, his opponent and likely victor in next year's general election, the head of the Labour Party, was also being taunted by his party members, but even much more. He's had an outright revolt of members leaving his ranks because they are mainly Muslim and supporting of Hamas, Palestine, whatever you want to call it. We all know that the majority of Palestinians vote for Hamas, and we all know that this is why Abbas is still postponing elections after I don't know how many years, almost 20 years since he was elected. We all know that the majority vote for Hamas. Whether they will still do that after seeing all this destruction, I don't know. I can only tell you that Arab workers, whether it's in East Jerusalem or what's left of Gaza and certainly in the Judea and Samaria, cannot go to work. I have building sites in Jerusalem where are completely idle. I have an apartment in Ashkelon which is 90% finished, and I can't get anyone to finish it because all the labor is Arab. So I think there's a pressure cooker building in those areas purely on an economic basis. They literally don't have any money, no wages. So having dealt with the politics, as far as the street is concerned, we're still having a lot of ruffians running through the central London, even now during the weekdays, with their kafirs and their masks and their Palestinian flags and green and whatever the other color of Palestinian flag, fireworks. There's been a few daubings of swastikas here and there. Obviously, the police, have to deal with that. On the other side of the coin, we've also had even school children marching today in East London during their lunch break with their parents through a park in East London, marching from the river to the sea and all of that rot. The Masorti and the Reform Jews had a vigil outside Parliament in Westminster on Wednesday evening, which was encouraging. And also on Sunday, the Christians who are Christians against anti-Semitism are having a march on Sunday under the theme "Never Again is Now."
Zalmi, is it more dangerous today than it was the last time you were on the show? Dangerous for Jewish families in London?
I actually feel that the tension is less. I guess I was extremely rattled by those scenes from Dagestan. That I think was probably the worst thing I've seen in terms of outside of Israel. But we got an unruly mob there on Sunday, Remembrance Sunday, which I spoke about last week. There was a remembrance parade at the Cenotaph, which is the memorial to the unknown soldier, and that is an annual event. And the Palestinians wanted to do their own march, and there was a lot of tension as to whether that would get out of control, but it passed off with the two sides being well apart. The Palestinians marched to the American embassy, so I guess they took their troubles to you. And I just generally feel a lesser tension, and I believe that there's a determined effort to keep these people out of Jewish areas. We've got certain youth groups on top of the CST, which is the official guardians of the Jewish community. We have some youth groups who did beat up a few hotheads in the early part of this ugliness. And I don't think they're going to be coming around our neighborhood anytime soon.
All right, well, whatever lessening of tension you got, we must have imported. Thank you very much, Zalmi. I'll see you soon. Keep my scotch bottle ready. Our fourth and final report comes from Juda Engelmayer in New Jersey with insights into the work of the Community Security Service, which assists Jewish institutions across the nation. How bad have things gotten with Jews being trapped in college buildings and with this unbelievable so-called malicious strike by drivers refusing Jews who flew in for the 300,000 person Stand with Israel march on Washington? Judah, take it away.
Well, there's always a silver lining, like I think Rabbi Abadie said earlier. Maybe it was Mrs. Suissa who said it. That CSS is now getting a lot more phone calls for business, which I guess is not something that we're proud of, but I guess it's a necessity. In fact, I'm training a class this evening right after work, a new one in the city, and how bad is it getting? It's not great. It's scary out there. We haven't seen real hard terrorist attacks. We have rumors, and we have the police departments and FBI telling us that we have to be on heightened alert. But so far, we've seen a lot of taunting and a lot of yelling in the streets and tearing down signs, but not a lot of physical confrontation, short of what we saw in Los Angeles and what we're seeing in Canada. We're not seeing a lot of that, and part of it could be a strategy, I believe, on Hamas's side, that they're getting so much support right now, at least in the street. If anything happens really badly, deadly, bloody, then they might lose that. So I think we think that could be working in our favor. I'm not trying to assume that I know what they're thinking, but we're definitely we have a lot of people on edge, a lot of schools, a lot of students, a lot of organizations, and a lot of individuals on edge and nervous, not wearing the kippot anymore, not wearing visible signs of Judaism. But we're not, we have a lot of warnings and a lot of caution out there, but not a lot of activity to be wary of yet. But obviously every day it gets gloomier, the news, and we see the amount of people protesting and the types of actions they're resorting to. The rally we had in DC was close to 300,000 people, and ask a local cop how things were going. He said he got more thank yous in one day than he has in a lifetime. And that's a credit to what we do, as opposed to other groups who make a lot of noise, turn over police cars, paint swastikas and spray paint automobiles and break windows and things like that. That's not who we are, and I think people know that. But I do believe, look what happened today in Washington D.C. Yesterday in front of the Democratic headquarters in Washington. It was violent. And I think we're going to see more cases of that and more lone wolves. I don't think it's going to be organized attacks. I think lone wolves, people thinking they're acting on behalf of somebody. And that's what we're looking out for. And it's scary out there. It gives us more people to train, to let people know, be more aware of what's around them, of their surroundings. We're teaching more and more people now. We've had, I think, 500% sign-up rates of synagogue organizations that want to hear from us and that want us to teach them how to protect themselves and look out. So that's what we're looking at right now. That's my overall assessment of where we are right now. And yes, having those buses from Detroit blocked, which is odd because no one else. There were so many people there, and they were literally from New Jersey. There were 72 buses from New Jersey. I think even more. There were hundreds of buses, thousands from all over the place. The parking lot we parked, there were thousands of buses. And the only complaint was from Detroit, which is weird because that might be an indication of where they're coming from and who represents them and the kind of people that live there. But I don't think anyone else had a complaint about getting to the rally on Tuesday, which I found interesting. It was mostly a Detroit contingent, which could say something about the representation there. Other than that,
I think that it was more than Detroit, and I would say that plaintiffs are now being looked for by leading attorneys in the Jewish community. So if you had a problem and you consider yourself a legitimate plaintiff, get in touch with 911 at theedwinblackshow.com or edwinblack.com, and we will try to hook you up with attorneys who want to take this higher. Judah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's hope that things don't get as bad as they might. Now, my pre-mono on how perilous is the situation. I want to focus on just two aspects of the many sides of the current fight for civilization. That's what we have here. A return to my theme that I expressed some days ago. There are few, if any, innocent civilians in Gaza. That is a terror and death culture where the youngsters train to be killers and martyrs, just as was done in Nazi Germany. And the episode we just released has the youngsters and their mothers and their summer camp counselors all talking about how they trained to kill Jews. I want you to recall the Hitler Youth, which was trained from preschool. Recall the Heimwehr or the Home Front and similar youngster regiments organized in the closing days of the May 1945 collapse of the Third Reich. They manned cannon and machine guns and swore allegiance to the death to the Third Reich. Remember that Hitler's last appearance right outside his bunker just before his suicide was to congratulate an assemblage of teenagers and preteens as young as 9 who became iconic in the final hours of Berlin's defense. Remember that their mothers and sisters were staunch pro-Hitler members of the National Socialist Women's League, and the many eugenic birthing programs went at light speed in Nazi Germany. So it is with Gaza, where it's hundreds of thousands of young people trained to be killers in UN-sponsored summer camps, and mothers fanatically commit their babies to a life of Jew killing. I urge you to see our episode of a few weeks ago, Israel's 9/11 Part 2, where we gave you those tapes. Now videos are emerging showing that when some of those 2,000 killers assaulted Israel's border towns, we see groups of youngsters on bicycles and their mothers and sisters as the rear guard of the assault, roaming the kibbutzim, looting the houses, assisting the killers in detecting escapes, and otherwise reveling in the murder spree. The Washington Free Beacon has published video footage and matching survivor accounts to document the complicit nature of the gleeful civilians who cheered the bloodshed as it was happening, where it was happening, and against whom it was happening. We will post the footage with analytical documentation and the Free Beacon article on show notes for this episode. I again say, rather than use the term innocent civilians, I prefer the terms combatants and non-combatants. There are 2 wars underway, and the second one is right here at home, as our guests have told you, where violent Palestinian mobs and their allies have come out of the public square and the mere mumbling of anti-Semitica to street action at Jewish dorms in Jewish neighborhoods, from Crown Heights to Canadian synagogues. Yesterday, again, Jewish students were trapped in a room, this time at the University of Arizona, where the mob threw rocks, hurled vile insults, until a police detachment came to escort them under armed guard out to their Chabad. Eve, you'll link that footage. By now, everyone knows that Tuesday, we saw some 300,000 Jews gather at the nation's capital, as was said, to stand with Israel and against Jew hatred as a great mass of peaceable solidarity. Yet the next day, yesterday, Wednesday, 200 pro-Hamas protesters, including the misled and hypnotized Jewish youth of If Not Now and its so-called Jewish Voice for Peace, which is mainly not Jewish and not interested in Jewish peace. We saw them riot against Democratic Party candidates, trapping them in the DNC headquarters, assaulting and injuring 6 Capitol Hill police, using pepper spray and dangerous objects, throwing punches to resist the cops. Strangely, only 1 was arrested, even though the video shows coordinated mob action. This is the stuff of Antifa, and it makes me realize that all my warnings of the coming possible dispossession of the Jews in 2025 is now in dress rehearsal, that the Democratic Party is in the throes of a massive takeover. Don't look at just the squad or the squadron in Congress. Look at the activist base, which is becoming a highly politicized and organized Democratic upheaval group. I urge all decent Democrats, elected officials, and ordinary voters to immediately exit the Democratic Party and join the Republicans, lest you become part of this growing, metastasizing, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel party of hate, a party which will return to its roots of the Ku Klux Klan, lynching parties, segregation, Jim Crow, Japanese internment, and Jewish abandonment during the Holocaust, but this time with a brand new victim list, already being pinpointed by mapping projects such as the one in Boston with MIT. It's all driven by extreme ignorance. When a generation is being raised on TikTok and manipulated by monsters who know better. If Democrats do not like the Republican policies, fine, change them from within. Form your own Tea Party type wing, but run away from what the Democratic Party is becoming, a hate mob that will seize the opportunity to prosecute and persecute the Jewish people in America, that Jews everywhere of all intellectual stripes have suddenly opened the shades to look outside and see the absolute possibility of their greater persecution. I will deal with this exact issue in my next episode on Yom HaGirush. Until then, we need in our community education, litigation, and coordination on every level, with every group, starting with ourselves and our youngest generation. This brings me to my monologue, the AI threat part 3, and this time we focus on war. Yes, war. It succeeds on 2 pillars: deception and lethality. Artificial intelligence, which is high-speed, mechanized, fake intelligence, possesses the ability to perfect deception. In his unforgettable book, The Art of War, Sun Tzu declared, quote, "All warfare is based on deception." We see this in the ancient fabulous Trojan horse, and as recently as William Randolph Hearst promised, "You furnish me the photo and I'll furnish the war," to the Third Reich's faked attack at the Polish border, complete with staged bodies transported from a morgue, thus starting World War II, to the Normandy invasion. Where was it really going to be, Normandy or Pas-de-Calais? To the Hamas rocket misfire that landed in a hospital parking lot without so much as a crater, but enough sound and fury mustered within 10 minutes to convince the BBC, the New York Times, and many other publications that Israel had destroyed the hospital, resulting in a nice round number of 500 deaths. It took days before the truth emerged, and even now the falsity lingers, like a fake poisoned well or a fictitious cemetery ceremony in the protocols of the elders of Zion. The fog of war can become the fig of victory. AI can generate lies faster, more accurately, and more effectively than 1,000 William Randolph Hearst and 1,000 Joseph Goebbels. It can create a false attack and within minutes have it verified and validated by 30,000 bots deployed at the speed of Google. AI has a second major ability, the coordination and automation of lethality. The Blitzkrieg was so named by the Germans because it used IBM's information technology, that is, the punch card technology. In today's war space, AI is being used to shape the battle, choose the weapons, and sequence the fire. An AI-assembled war plan is now in place for Lebanon, and we described it in great detail in an earlier episode. We will link to that. The sequencing of munitions against targets, whether bombs, artillery shells, naval missiles, mortars, troop assaults, it has all been programmed. So when the battle in Lebanon commences, impacts will be delivered not hundreds per day as in the last go around, but hundreds per hour with the best munition for the right target chosen by a central computer. This approach has already been used in Gaza, where battlefield intelligence and attack plans produced nighttime bombing of one explosion every 25 seconds. Part of the reason Hamas crumbled in the first days and weeks of the war. But what if the information warfare is faked? What if the battlefield coordination is undermined by an artificial intelligence command center that is consciously undermining a legitimate war effort to advance a Chinese or a Russian agenda, programmed by quantum computers that operate millions of times faster than our fastest supercomputers, a realm where China and Russia greatly lead the US in both announced and unannounced quantum computing projects. To give us further insight, I've chosen not a technocrat or a computer specialist to talk to us, because we can assume as a certainty that everyone from the Pentagon to Tiananmen Square will be deploying AI. I turn instead to a foreign policy analyst, Democratic strategist, and Hudson Institute fellow, Josh Block. Take it, Josh, and tell us just how bad it can get.
Well, Edwin, I think one of the things that we need to remember is that the technologies we're talking about, the quantum computing and the AI tools, are just part of a great power competition that we're seeing between the United States and the West, and Russia, China, and its axis, which is really Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. And so the race for hypersonic weapons, the race for space dominance, again, just to pause there, if you thought, that in conflict, America's air dominance and air power was a key to success in battlefield. Well, what happens when there's a layer above the airplanes and the helicopters and it's directed energy weapons coming down from space? What happens then? So, you've got a whole range of things. Now, the question of AI and quantum computing is, I think, a very good one. You raised this point, and how far ahead China in particular and Russia to a degree are. The United States is working on these things. Israel, of course, is as well. Just on the stakes of this, I think, Edwin, for a second, I think all of these technologies that make up this great power competition are about about the stakes of freedom in the next 50 to 70 years, about who will run the world, who will have the tools and the power to be the guarantor of freedom. Will that be the West, or will it be these autocratic states who will have the power for unbreakable codes and the ability to break all of our codes, to hack all of our systems, which is what quantum computing and super powerful AI would allow them to do. Of course, if we master the quantum computing and these other tools first, we'll have unbreakable codes, and we'll have the ability to secure Western norms for the next epoch of global dominant technology. So whether it's in war, or it's in economics and business, in finance, in anything that we do, as the Internet of Things becomes more ubiquitous, and every object that functions, whether it's a light bulb or a computer or your car or your refrigerator or your appliance or your toilet or whatever it is connected to the internet, let alone your pacemaker and your implanted heart device and your smartwatch and your everything else. The ability to engage these things is going to grow, and the danger is going to grow. The ability to hack into every Tesla in the world is you could hack into every Tesla at the moment. You can hack into one, you can hack into them all. They're not that secure, these systems. What if every Tesla was just told to stop immediately where it is in traffic right now, just as an example? All these things are possible, and then these things are possible today without the achievement of these quantum computing successes and the integration of AI into these tools. So again, just in terms of where we are in terms of facing up to our adversaries, we've not done what we need to do to harden our electrical grid. As we see from all these ransomware attacks, we've not done what we need to do to secure our critical systems like hospitals or banks, universities, casinos in Las Vegas getting hacked, having to take down people's credit cards for hotel rooms on paper. These are contemporary problems. I'm talking about things that have been happening the last few weeks and months, not, this is not ancient history. The vulnerabilities of the cars, the medical devices are well documented. The FBI is regularly issuing bulletins to the companies who manufacture these things to increase their security, offering to work with them to do that. This idea that Vice President Dick Cheney was a crazy person because he was worried about some terrorist hacking his pacemaker, that's real. And it's just as real, if not more so now, 20 years later, as it was at the time when he was in office and talking about these things. So again, whether it's quantum computing and its combination with AI and then the coming reality of everything in the world being connected to one large network, which again, these very powerful artificial intelligence and quantum powerful tools would allow folks to map and penetrate, in very systematic ways. All of this is coming. And so unless we adopt realistic policies of our own to develop both the surveillance tools to protect ourselves, deep packet surveillance and other things, and we come to an honest assessment of the fact that our adversaries in these great power areas, whether it's again quantum computing or artificial intelligence or direct energy or space dominance, like we have air dominance, whether it's satellite tools, and with hypersonics, all of these are areas that are critically important to our future as citizens of Western countries, of Western civilization, and the globe, if we want to see the continuation of freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression, and privacy to the extent that it still exists in any realm, or the right to it. We know there's a difference between democratic governments and autocratic governments and how they view the rights of citizenry, and then of course how they use and deploy these tools either for good or for ill.
All right,
and so
Josh.
that matters.
Josh, you made some great points. I made a couple of notes, then we're going to get to our questions. It was interesting, you talked about which national power would be running the world and the AI. And I just wondered if you believe, knowing what many of the AI specialists believe, do you believe that the countries will be running the AI or AI will be running the countries? What do you say quickly?
Well, I still believe that the AI is only programming. And so it's able to be controlled and manipulated. But I do believe there is danger that when you don't set the best kind of rules and you give these systems challenges like accomplish this, and you don't have it, there's no safe, it'll do anything to get there, like that example where it killed the operator to get over the restriction it had on killing its enemy because the operator said there were too much collateral damage.
There was actually a case where a robot, which is not AI, remember robots are not AI. There was the case of the robot that just killed a guy because he thought the guy was a box. All right, there was one other thing, then we're going to go to the questions. You talked about the fact that Teslas maybe all stop at once. We dealt with this several episodes ago, but hidden deep in the infrastructure bill was a mandate that all auto manufacturers install remote control on every vehicle, and it must be up and running within 3 years. Now, we dealt with that before, but I'm afraid that your fear will quite be realized. Even now, Tesla is stopping cars in the middle of the street because some guy hasn't paid an $8,000 bill or something of that nature. And we run the risk that individuals will be identified and be sent to the police station or to various authorities. This is very, very real. Stick around, Josh. Let's get to our questions. We have one from Marlene in St. Louis. She wants to know, it's crucial we not hire these anti-Semitic thugs. Is there a central source for keeping track of that? I'm going to turn it over to David if he's still with us. David, what do you know about Canary Mission and StopAntisemitism.com as listing these people?
Actually, Canary Mission is one of my favorite organizations. In the first few years, they were kind of covert, and now they've basically come out. What I love about them, they're absolutely no nonsense. They don't pretend just to be Hasbara like so many organizations. And it's basically all based on accountability and consequences. So do you want to terrify Jewish students on campuses? Do you want to scream globalize the Intifada? Do you want to spread that vicious genocidal hatred? Fine, go ahead. That's freedom of speech. And freedom of speech includes our freedom to give you consequences. And those consequences means that, this is going to follow them wherever they go. And if it means they have a lot of trouble getting jobs in the future, well, this is how life works. Free speech is not free. It comes with consequences. So I love Canary Mission, Edwin, and we need them now more than ever because the hatred, and Josh could talk about it better than anyone. The level of hatred that we're seeing now is completely off the charts. This group, if not now, I want you to know, on the first day, October 7th and October 8th, they blamed Israel for the absolute massacre. And this is a smoking gun against groups. There is a realignment happening now in the Jewish community. And we're asking ourselves some tough questions. I've spoken to donors who used to give to If Not Now. And for them, their statement on October 8th is a smoking gun. This is before Israel went into Gaza. There's a sense that they're panicking because they had their cherished narrative that Israel is the oppressor and Palestinians are the oppressed. October 7 blew that narrative open. And part of what we're seeing now is they're panicking because they want that narrative to come back. The real narrative that's happening is the human one that you spoke about that's got nothing to do with politics and ideology. It has to do with humanity. One side is barbarism, the other side is civilized. They're threatened by that narrative because they have nothing to gain from it. So you're seeing a little bit of the panic of a group losing their narrative. And that's what we're seeing. So Canary Mission is crucial, and I wish there were more like them.
Well, yeah, Canary Mission is, I've always said it's the only Jewish organization that the Jew haters fear. What do you know about StopAntisemitism.org?
Well, they do a lot of great work on the internet and on social media. And I have to tell you, I'm like delighted by the tsunami of efforts. I don't even pick and choose anymore. We used to. I don't pick and choose. You got End Jew Hatred that I love. The campaign. There's one from Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriot. They did a fantastic commercial, with the father telling his son, who posted something about Hitler. Be honest with you, everything I'm seeing, I'm glad it exists. I'm not in the camp. There are a lot of Jews that say we have to coordinate everything. You cannot coordinate Jews. They're the most difficult people to coordinate. So I'm blessing. I meet with different activist groups all day long. And to be honest with you, Edwin, I value all of them.
And it's the same with me. We have to use every means, every lever. Everyone has got to flex their muscles. We're going to get to another question here. I've actually got three of these, but I'm going to summarize it from Mark in Boston. Is Israel committing genocide? So let me, as a guy who has written about genocide for many decades, let me just tell you, the word genocide was invented by Raphael Lemkin, a Polish Jewish refugee on the campus of Duke University in approximately 1943 to describe what the Nazis were doing. Anyone can search it out. And there are 5 different basic categories of genocide, and they all involve trying to utterly destroy and dismantle a group. There's no genocide going on in Gaza. You don't commit genocide by delivering incubators to Al-Shifa Hospital. You don't commit genocide by dropping leaflets saying get out of the war zone. You don't commit genocide by making humanitarian corridors and even allowing fuel and food trucks to get in. But the people with the low mind, the people who don't understand anything, like If Not Now, are all screaming about genocide. The genocide is fake. The apartheid is fake. The refugees are fake. The refugee camps are fake. The refugee agency is fake. And the world peace body is also fake. And I'll tell you something, Jews have a long history with fakery because we've had to fight fakery throughout all of our centuries, whether it involves making matzah from blood, poisoning the wells, or planning to commit war. Now, listen, I've got another 20 questions, but I can't do it. We're out of time. Hold for my closing word of wisdom, just 1 minute away. But first, I want to thank my esteemed, excellent guest, Josh Block, Rabbi Abadie, LA Jewish Journal, David Suissa, from CSS, Juda Engelmayer in Jersey, and Likud UK President Zalmi Unsdorfer in London. Get access alerts to participate live in future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this show in prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show. Follow me at Edwin Black Book on that new thing called X, as well as Facebook. And now for my closing word of wisdom, repeating an earlier one and adding some. Take names before your name is taken. Take sides before your side is taken. Take a stand while you are still standing, and take courage as you must. Thank you, world. I'm zooming out. Bless all of you. Bye.